to rattle through because I think most of my presentation's probably already been covered, but hopefully not the conclusion of it, and let's hope I can go the right way round. So just to show how I fit into the family, my beloved Seaside Granny. So that's me, my mum and Granny. It's probably not the most flattering picture of her.
It's very flattering of you.
And then there's somebody else who's also, that's Sophie with her mum, Granny, and Lucy Sedgwick, who was Bertie's wife. And that's Bertie, looking very resplendent and I think doing very well, judging by the bulging buttons as I hold my stomach in. And so that's probably one of the rare ones where all of the family are there. I think by that time that would have been in Woodford, although I think all of the kids were born. Freddie was born in Derbyshire, I think Lucy was born in Derbyshire, but at some point they moved to Woodford where he was a chemist. And then John Broom, and this is taken sort of a crop of a photo. It's not one that's been inherited on our side of the family, so it's somebody else's label saying it's John Broom. So I just hope that they got that right. He looks kind of friendly, I think, in that. So I was very lucky. I was interested in family tree from about the age of 14, and I wrote numerous letters to all of the cousins across the family, asking them questions, and I also did my own research. And this is my copy of the marriage certificate that I bought in 1978, so quite a few years ago. And again, the same dilemma. So from talking to all of the family, all I'd learnt about John Broom was that obviously his father's name isn't here. The stories were that he had been in the army, had served in Ireland, had, as we said before, bought his commission back. So he was an officer in the army as well. And we really didn't know that much about him. And I was very lucky to be able to pick Alaric and Brenda's brain and collect a lot of stories. And Nicola's involvement has made me realise how little of it I've documented. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be inspired. So the importance of Margaret Daisy Broom is that she died intestate, and her brother had already died, so they had to find all of the cousins in order to trace the family tree to see who inherited. I was lucky enough from, I think, Alaric to see the family tree that they put together. So I didn't do the research, I just sort of leapt on the back of what they'd done. And this is, I think, my version with scribblings from Alaric, and I've got this on PDF if anyone needs it. So for Mary the eldest, Margaret, I think, still lived in Derbyshire. Bertram, or Bertie as he is my ancestor, ended up in Essex. Charles went to South America, and Frederick we've heard from Vicky about. Paul and George were never found at the time that Margaret died. They lost contact with them. Paul and his wife had died very young, and George was looking after the children somewhere, probably in Toronto.
Oh, that's where they died, was Toronto.
Yes. And then Agnes didn't have any children, although she married, I think she was 70 or something when she married. Then Harriet and Constance, and I think Constance is really the only one that I'm not in contact with in any way, but I'm thinking that you're in contact with the grandson.
Because she...
So it's quite a wide-ranging family, and all of the stories about farming ostriches, and a lot of the Broome girls actually went to Canada on boats. There's a story about one of the girls having a dream not to travel, and either she or her sister was due to go on the Lusitania, is what I've been told.
Yes, absolutely true.
Yes. And this is from the family Bible, and I've got copies of all of these if you want them, and it's very nice because it actually says where everybody was born and the dates, and I think for most of them I've found the baptisms in the records. And then just another one, I think some of you will have seen these photos. We have a cousin on the Tretiri side called Caleb Stockwell, and either he or his children were the first triplets ever born in Canada. And he came over to visit. I think his grandmother was Agnes's sister. He came over in about 1904, and in addition to this wonderful photo, there are photos of London at that time, and some photos we'd never seen of the younger Broom. So Paul Broom we'd never seen a photo of. And I've got them with me and people can copy them. But they couldn't really fit in any of the gaps. And so what we were going to do before was I was going to sort of swap over with Vicky, but I'm just going to sort of blather my way through. So that's obviously Fred. That's a family wedding photo that I found in Richard's photos. I need help identifying everybody, but I'm pretty sure that up at the top is Uncle Freddie, Nicola's grandfather, and at the bottom I think is my grandmother and either Lucy or Dolly, I'm not sure. I think Bertie's in the middle, but I'm sure that there are a lot of Mortimer cousins in here as well. And then Vicky's been instrumental in keeping the family together, so this is a big barbecue that she put together. And this is more the double cousins, but there's an interloper called Nicky in there as well. So we've seen the photo of John. So after Brenda had done all of her research, she was pretty convinced, and I think the gentleman from Haverfordwest thought that there were two different Hannahs, and there was some sort of debate as to whether the Hannah that we've skip over that one. We couldn't quite decide. So this was a family in Sherland and Ashover, and James already really said that in fact it's not this family, it's the Charles Broome of Dethick and Lee. And one of the interesting questions that we've got left is, well, there are two things here. She married William Else, and the children in the census return you saw earlier are the children of his first wife, and then two daughters that she had with William. And one of those daughters had an illegitimate child who is actually the ancestor of the William Else that went into business with FSJ. And he ends up staying at Peyton and Baldwin's, and I think it's 1939, he's still a manager there. And then we've got John Broome living in with the family as well. And another interesting thing, probably more for Jane, is that Emma married William Doxey. I think that either he or one of the descendants actually worked here, and I think another descendant was the guy that did the research in Worksworth and put together the amazing...
John Palmer.
Is it John Palmer? I think he's got Doxey ancestors. It's something I must catch up on. So there's a lot of interweaving research projects here. I can prove now. So this is the Canadian family from Poultry Theory Broome. As you can see, this is my mum's DNA results, and she's got 3 connections. So it's difficult to see on this, but we have 2 daughters, one married a Tunny, one a Graham, and so we've got 2 Tunny cousins here. So we are in contact. They don't seem remarkably enthusiastic to be part of the family, but perhaps give them time. I think having people sort of email you out of the blue is... and then the other DNA match is a bit more significant, that I can prove, I think, by DNA that it is the right Hannah Else, or Hannah Broome, and via Emma Else, it's a bit more tortuous. You can prove that that's where we fit in. And then I couldn't manage to print it out, it wouldn't do it, but we have a very interesting clue in that Nicola and I and Judith, who's also had her DNA test, matched to a family of Barkers. Now, one of the Broome boys is called George Barker Broome. I'm stuck, I can't quite trace further back. They've emigrated to the States. It's difficult to pin down where they came from in Derbyshire, but I'm wondering whether there's a Barker somewhere that could be John's father. It's not obvious. It's that sort of time when a lot of people are moving to work. You can't really tell where Hannah was before, where he was before. But if anybody else wants to do a DNA test, perhaps we can join the dots up. Here we've got Samuel Broome, that we saw was the witness to Smedley's will. I've never been able to find his baptism. He's living with Charles and Martha, his supposed parents in 1841, but I can't find his baptism, I can't find Charles's baptism. I can find Martha's and his wedding, but I somehow feel that if we can find out more about Samuel, we'll be able to find out more about the family before they came here. And there are a few, I think I've traced, so from Anne there's also another, I think she married a Woolley, and our mum has got DNA matches there, so I can prove a lot of the sidelines. Not that helps us go further back. And I think just the only thing I wanted to pick up on the end was that there's lots of stuff that we've shared, and here's picture of the unknown soldier. Could that be John Broom? There are a few things that we need to pick up, and obviously I'll keep being nerdily into genealogy as I always have been, but a lot of stuff is shared online, and I'll be able to share links where you can actually add your bit to the family, put photos, and Wikitree is lovely. It hasn't been ruined by people hacking in and changing the details yet. I'm sure it will do at some point, but for now it's a really good place where you can put it. You don't have to pay, whereas Ancestry, if you're sharing stuff, normally you have to pay for the trees. And then just a plan to share all our photos and stories and get them written down, because I think there are some wonderful stories that otherwise might just sort of get lost, I think.
Definitely.
So sorry that was quick, but everybody stole my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.